All right, well, Sipho Ngwema, the Competition Commission of South Africa's head of communications, joins us for a conversation. Mr. Ngwema, a warm welcome to you. Thank you so very much for joining us here on SABC News for this important discussion.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having us on your program.
You're most welcome. Let's talk about this lack of transformation. And I want to say perceived, but it's actually not perceived. It seems like this is, in fact, the reality. I mean, what the black market agents are bemoaning and what they speak of in terms of, this lack of transformation. I mean, what do you make of it as the Competition Commission?
We have given platform to all the stakeholders in the fruit and veg value chain, basically the fresh produce value chain, to come and give evidence before us in terms of that very important part, which is barriers to entry in terms of the previously disadvantaged, and secondly, with regards to small business. And also it's amongst the other things that we're investigating, particularly with regards to efficiency in terms of the market, having emphasis in terms of the fresh market produce markets throughout the country, but also we also want to look at the inputs and what those things in the end determine, how those things in the end determine the price. So it's important, the issue of transformation, because we want to look at it, because as you look at it now, that constitutes exclusion, and it's part of the issues that we have to deal with. But at the end of the day, we want to listen to all the stakeholders, look at the facts, and then get to a determination on whether or not the issues that we set out as the country are being achieved, are the targets being achieved? If not, what is it that we must do? So those things will come out in our findings and recommendations, and we should be able to take action from a Competition Act point of view, but also in terms of the work that we're doing in terms of the Competition Act and Section 43 of that Act, which gives us the powers to do the kinds of investigation and inquiries that we are doing, so that those things can be sorted, given the fact that they may be having adverse effects that cause or lead to distortion, restriction, and impeding of competition in this particular sector or any other sector for that matter.
It seems you anticipated where I wanted to go with this discussion, and this is actually where I want to talk about the actions that you speak of, Mr. Ngwema. What I was going to ask you was, if the Competition Commission has a mandate to assist with these sort of issues, and you've answered that part of the question. But I would then now want to ask, since you've answered that, how exactly? Because when we're talking about these particular issues, there's so much at play here. We're talking about, and I suppose this is the bigger issue of it all, is the land issue. And then, listening to that clip, and what one might even call them gatekeepers, but maybe they were being realistic. There were some gentlemen there who were talking about the fact that, some of you guys are actually too small to thrive. And I suppose he's talking about the black farmers, where, unfortunately, you haven't established that sort of relationship. You haven't established that trust. I mean, you would have heard some of these people and their contributions to the conversations that you were having there, talking about this. I mean, this is a reality at the end of the day, even if we want to call them gatekeepers. So I think my next question then is what could the Competition Commission do, and what sort of recommendations could you make when there's so much at play?
We as a Competition Commission give effect to the Competition Act, and the Competition Act gives us powers to look at the issues that we're looking at with regards to this particular inquiry. And we are going to make findings, and out of those findings we'll make recommendations, which we are going to take to Parliament. And Parliament then has to adopt those findings. Once they are adopted by Parliament, and they then have to be effected. And we have powers and the divisions within us who monitor the compliance with regards to whatever findings and recommendations we are going to make. So once this has been done, there's a process through the Minister of DTI, Minister Ibrahim Patel. He takes it to Parliament. Once he takes it to Parliament, those decisions are then endorsed. Once they are endorsed, we must then give effect to the decisions that have been taken through making sure that there's compliance, through making sure that there is action that is being taken with the findings that we are going to make. So this is why we are giving opportunity to all the stakeholders, to everyone who has evidence. We continue to call on them to come forward in terms of this particular round. We'll be around until Thursday next week, fielding retailers, everyone, all the stakeholders in this particular area, because at the end of the day, we want to get to the bottom of the matter so that in terms of exactly what we have said, we're able to make recommendations, we're able to make sure there's action if indeed there are features in this market that distort, restrict, or even impede competition. Because at the end of the day, if those things do not take place, it means the consumer suffers in terms of price. It means the consumer may be suffering in terms of quality, because once there are issues of exclusion, once there are issues of concentration, certainly the impact is felt by the consumer. And this is why most of the time we are unable to explain the prices. So we believe that at the end of this process, we should be having answers in terms of all those questions, and all of us should be able to understand. But back to your question, you should be able to take action where it's needed.
You know, what I found particularly disturbing, you know, around some of these submissions was the fact that there was talk of, you know, the leadership at market perhaps being transformed, but nothing else essentially changing, which talks to what we often see, where, you know, the faces may be changed, but really the operations and everything else that happens has not changed. What's to stop, you know, these particular agents, these farmers and so forth, from continuing this in a more strategic way, continuing in a better way to deceive us, where we think that there's changes going on, but really what's taken place is that we have, you know, people that are really just the faces, people of color who are the faces, of black people who are just the faces. I mean, you know, this is a possibility that could happen.
Certainly, you must remember, in terms of the transformation agenda of the country, there are targets, and people are supposed to report in terms of the targets that have been set. And as part of gathering the evidence from the various role players, we need to make sure that we get to the bottom of that and to see whether or not those targets are being met. Are they in sync with the projections that would have been made in the beginning and the progress that should have been made by now? And once we get to the end of our investigation, those findings and those recommendations will have to take into account of those issues. And at this point, we are gathering that evidence, and we are still going to talk to a number of people who are going to present facts to us. And once those facts are before us, we'll be able to make a determination. For now, we are investigating, and fortunately, we are getting quality inputs, and of course, we are receiving quality with regards to the credibility of the witnesses. We think that the information that we're getting in terms of submission is going to be able to assist us to make those findings and have recommendations. So certainly, at the end of the day, when we come back at the end of the inquiry, we should be able to make pronouncements in that regard. And as I said, back to policymakers who should assist us in making sure that what is to be done must be done and will be done, because we'll make sure that from our compliance point of view, we effect those, we take action so that the changes that are necessary, if they are not taking place, that they should take place in line with what the law allows.
Mr. Ngwema, it was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much for giving us your time. Sipho Ngwema is the Competition Commission of South Africa's head of communication.